So it was a great day out there, as first practices always are. Full of excitement. So just the transitions. It's for everyone, and
Troup, Smooch, and the Dog Show. Another new episode is coming on tonight.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dog Show.
One and only.
Your hosts, Troup Brenson and Smooch Moncrief.
Come on.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Yes. Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dog Show with Troup and Smooch. And so good to be back tonight. It's list season. We've heard everybody kind of breaks up off seasons, talking season, this season, that season, recruiting season, NFL draft. Now it's called list season, Smooch.
Yeah.
Everybody is putting out their list. Now the Dog Show will not be, undone or overdone. We're going to put our own list out today and talk about that. How are you? It's been a week or so since we've been on the air. How you doing, brother?
I've been good. I had to travel a little bit. I had a couple of engagements out of town. I had to go play, but feels good to be back here with the Dog Show. This is kind of home base. This is where my mind is nurtured and fed, is right here in this role. And speaking of list season, Troup, one thing you will notice if you listen to the Dog Show is our lists. What's the term I'm looking for? They make sense rather than make clicks. I think that probably 70% of the impetus for most of these lists is to get clicks. So there's always something outrageous on it. And we find at the Dog Show, we find the truth to be far more outrageous than just shock value. So that's what we go with here, Troup Brenson.
I considered that. You're exactly right. I considered it. I was like, okay, maybe we should do what these other guys do and pick one team, maybe two teams that should be right where there's an obvious spot they should be in, and just totally exclude them.
Yeah.
Just put them way out of there in such a spot that the fans just got all worked up and all the work for you and get your attention. And I was thinking about that. I was like, who would I do that with? Would it be Alabama or Alabama's kind of lost their luster now? We saw what happened with Kalen DeBoer last year after all the big talk. And who would it be? Would it be Notre Dame? Would it be Ohio State? I couldn't. Clemson. Those were teams that I was like, okay, we could just disappear these guys out of the top 10.
Right.
But no. As I looked at it, I was like, no. Let's do it the right way, and at least the Dog Show way, what we think is accurate. And we're going to do a top 10 gold standard. Gold standard. It's not the top 10 of where they are starting this season or where they ended last season.
That's an important point.
The post-spring top 20. It's just going to be the gold standard top 10, where these programs are. We're going to put that out there for you guys to digest. We're going to talk about it. And of course, we got some recruiting news to talk about as well. And again, there's always pundits and fans saying some ridiculous stuff that we're going to call out and talk about that tonight as well.
Oh, my gosh.
But before we get started, I just got back from it was Memorial Day, so I hope you guys enjoyed your holiday. And my family went down to Cape San Blas for a couple of days just to get away, get to some blue-green waters and white sand. But me and Smooch this is an ongoing thing. It takes our summer plans.
Takes about 10 months to plan.
It's an endeavor that we just enjoy. I enjoy that part of it. We're going to Alaska, of course, and mid to late July for a week plus. And we've been working on that for the past few months. I started booking stuff like an RV, because when we go to Alaska, we fly to Alaska, we rent an RV there, and then we just make our way pretty much down from Anchorage all the way down to Homer.
Right.
And we hit the rivers there, and then we just hit all the spots that we've learned about over the years. So we had to rent the RV, had to what else? After we got the airfare and all that taken care of, the RV was a big deal. Now we're starting to get our equipment together.
Yeah.
And so we have just to let you guys know, we're pretty serious about this. I have a storage unit.
We keep a storage unit in Alaska just for gear. If you might not know it, but traveling with enough gear to salmon fish to bring home 150 pound of salmon takes a lot of gear, and that's hard to fly with. So we actually keep it in Troup storage unit there.
Yeah, we have the coolers, and I got extra rods, and I bring my reels back home with me to take care of. But I have extra rods and waders, a few extra waders that we had, and just different odds and ends that it's easier to keep there. And but then Smooch and Amy have bought them some new reels and waders this year.
I got to keep the princesses. That's right. Got to keep the princesses tushy warm. That's what has to happen with those waders. Got to get
you can get those 2-ply. We've used those 2-ply it's almost like plastic waders. They still work just fine.
Yeah.
But then Smooch saw us last couple years ago with those neoprenes.
Yeah.
And those neoprenes are really nice, and they keep you warm. And it's got the boots attached to them, of course, as well. And just they just look sleek, and the comfort is second to none.
Well, let's also point out that while I was reeling in a lovely 14-pound salmon, that I went ass over tea kettle and ripped a pair of your waders. So we should probably mention that. So I'm redonating waders, as they say.
So what you don't know, when you catch a salmon, you don't just reel him in like a bass and just reel him in and put a net on him. I mean, you can. It's really difficult because they fight for everything they have. And so when you hook one, you back up because you don't already don't have a whole lot of line out. You reel a little bit, but you're trying to back it up and walk him to the shore, where you can,
it's a battle.
Hit him in the head and debilitate him, and then pull his gills out, put him on stringer. But while you're backing up, sometimes you fall over things. My wife has taken a tumble before, and I've fallen before. Once you start backing up, you hit something behind you, a rock or anything back there, and you fall. But yeah, Smooch did 2 years ago and ripped his waders.
I did.
Yeah, and it's not one of those cruises. Everybody, I mean, it's okay if you want to take a cruise, but people take cruises to Alaska because they don't know what else to do.
Yeah,
they just don't have a better idea. Nobody tells them what to do. And my wife being from Alaska and us having friends there, they kind of walked us on here's how you do it. This is what you do. This is where you go. And we've kind of adapted over the years. Yeah, and we'll document that when we go because I think most Georgia fans would like to hear about what happens in Alaska when you're kind of doing it like we do it. Like, I mean, it's a tailgate every day, basically. It really is. And so we take that kind of mindset there, and we'll, in late July, we'll lead up to the season talking about that, I think, and showing you some stuff. Anyway, we're just going to kick it right off, I think, Smooch, and talk about our list first, because this is list season. And we've seen all of these post-spring lists, and like you said, like you mentioned, a lot of them leave a team out or two just to generate some conversation. We're seeing Georgia listed at 11th on a list, and it was just to tweak Georgia fans. It felt like because
100%
the criteria that he said that we're going to put Georgia 11th was the same criteria that he had teams elevated. And I was like, that makes no sense.
Yeah. So what we're going with is a gold standard of college football. And that doesn't mean this is the best team at this moment. It doesn't mean that this is the team we're predicting to win the national championship. This is the team that has proven to be year in and year out in recent history the standard to which all other teams should strive to achieve. That's the gold standard of football. So that's the list we put together, the gold standard of college football for this upcoming season.
Yep, we'll pop it up right here. We're just going to throw it out there and let you guys take a look at it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. And, of course, you do see that I think that if you're being objective, most objective football fans know that Georgia, even though they haven't won in the past 2 years, is still the gold standard in college football. It may hurt your feelings to say that, some of you rival fans. But with Kirby Smart, the administration, the coaching staff, and the machine that they have running, and the machine that develops these players and gives them an opportunity every year, even in a down year like last year with quarterback issues and injuries all over the place on offense and really young defense, Georgia was able to win an SEC championship. And this coaching staff is what it's all about. Kirby Smart has got this running as well as you can expect it to, given everything we know about the current landscape of college football. He's adapted pretty well for that. And
100%.
Number two, of course, we're going to say that is Ohio State. They won a championship last year. Even though we don't love Ryan Day, you got to give him some credit. You don't win a national championship by accident. even though he whines and cries a lot. Yeah, and he had his moments over the years. You don't win a national championship without a really, really a good program. So
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that Georgia's standard, Georgia's being the gold standard, starts with the head coach. And I think that Ohio State being the standard starts with the front office.
Okay.
I think those are the two big differences. Ohio State does it by, they go out now. Ryan Day, you still have to coach the players, but they're given a very large a pot to draw from to bring these kids in. I think Georgia starts with the coach, and I think Ohio State starts with the office of the operations.
Well put. I like that. I got Oregon number 3, and they're just poised. Dan Lanning's got a good coaching staff as well, and they're recruiting at a high level with tons of money and a very committed administration there. So I like Oregon right there, ready, poised to make that next move and possibly win one in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and they could easily in 5 years be number 1 on this list. They're trending in that direction, depending on how long Lanning stays there.
Right. Texas at number 4, and I know Texas fans think they should be at number 1 on everything, but I mean, what have they won so far? And I do think Sarkisian is a good coach, and being top 4 is really good for them. And that's actually a few steps above where they would have been a couple years ago. Alabama at number 5, and I know the Alabama fans are going to say, "Are you kidding me? We are the standard still." We told you guys last year that you don't lose somebody like Saban and get better. And then you folks had an awakening when you saw that DeBoer came in, and even though they rubber stamped everything he did early on, you saw that he was not ready for prime time for SEC football. He did not run his program that way, and he tried to make adjustments early, and they just didn't. They couldn't get it together last year. Even players were saying that we didn't buy in, and they're saying now we're buying in.
No, we are. Yeah, absolutely.
We're in, and so we'll see how that works out. But I definitely think they took a step back.
Yeah, I think, Troup, let me say this. Of Texas and Alabama, at least one of those teams will not be on this list next year. I think that there are so many, there's so much possibility for a slip off the cliff for either one of these two teams. They've still got to hit on Arch Manning. They haven't proven that they've hit on Arch Manning yet. So they've got it. Texas has to hit on Arch Manning. Bama has to hit on a lot. I don't even want to get into that list. So Bama could probably have another subpar year and still be considered the standard, but Texas doesn't have the wiggle room. So, if Arch Manning comes out and is anything but an elite SEC quarterback, I don't see them being the standard for the SEC even.
Well, you saw what happened. That Texas doesn't quite recruit on the same level as Georgia and Alabama do over a course of years and years. Mm-hmm. That's why Alabama still got a chance. Right. Because their blue chip ratio and Georgia's they have so
Alabama.
Yeah. The talent level is still right there. You just need a quarterback. For both teams, a quarterback steps up. For Georgia and Alabama, they could be the top 2 teams in the country. If they both have quarterbacks that step forward and do and have great seasons, the talent is obviously there more than any other team. Texas hasn't recruited on that level over the course of time. So you saw what they had to do in the transfer portal, bringing in so many players, defensive line, and that doesn't always pan out. It looks good on paper. We saw what Texas A&M has done. Other teams as well. USC has brought players in transfer portal. Lots of teams are doing that.
Not seen on this list. USC has.
Ohio State made it work for them. They did get it together.
Yeah, they did.
But Florida State, another team that just the transfer portal isn't always the avenue for success. It seems like maybe it would be, but it hasn't been so far for most teams. So Texas is having to rely on that a lot, but they recruit at a fairly high level. You got to stack those classes on top of each other, which Georgia and Alabama have. Looking at number 6 is the Clemson Tigers, and Dabo Swinney's got some longevity, and he's got a good program. He's won. I don't think he's kind of the tiers are kind of separating right there. I still don't think Clemson.
Yeah, huge the difference in tier. That's exactly right.
Now playing in the ACC, just like I would say, like a team like Miami. I don't think Miami's got that great of a program. I think they spend a lot of money, but Clemson and Miami playing in the ACC. Look at their schedule. Just pull it up, folks. Look at their schedules, and it's hard to find losses unless they just get upset, and play terrible games. Yeah, and so just based on their conference schedule, those teams every year are going to be right there, maybe second tier.
Yeah.
All right. So I got Clemson at number 6, and then it pains me to say that Notre Dame is maybe right in there too at number 7, but Smooch loves their coaching staff, and I got to admit that they've done a good job. And we've always thought that Notre Dame was paper tigers, propped up by the media.
Yes.
Until last year, and they showed us a little bit more last year where they played football.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman. I'm a fan. I hate to say it because I hate everything that the media tries to put on Notre Dame, but Marcus Freeman is the first coach that has, in recent years, that has outcoached Kirby Smart from beginning to end in a football game. He took it to him. He beat him. The Notre Dame beat Georgia. Georgia didn't lose to Notre Dame. They got beat by Notre Dame. And, hats off there. So I think Notre Dame, and again, as much as it pains me to say it, may have Notre Dame and Oregon may be the two teams with the most upward trajectory on this list, Drew Brinson.
Yeah. I like it. And number 8, LSU. LSU recruits at a very high level. No matter who's coaching them, every year they are right there. So much talent in state.
Always a stable of wide receivers just pouring up, just everywhere.
Yeah. So LSU is always right there. Got a good chance for a great season this year too, with Nussmeier coming back. Number 9, Michigan, as I think the number 2 team from the Big Ten. I guess number 3 now. If you look at Oregon, Oregon's in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't feel right, but yes. So Michigan, even though I'm not sold on their coaching staff and Sharon Moore and those guys and how they're going to keep it going, they still right now they could be off this list in the next year or so, but not right now. Number 9.
Yeah, Michigan has always kind of been the poor man's Georgia. That's kind of been where they always are, and so that puts them at the very bottom of a list when you're talking about the gold standard, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to put Tennessee in, even though we give them a lot of trouble. Heupel has built a team that is
respectable,
right there, borderline top 10. If that gets you excited, and when everything clicks together, they're going to have a difficult time this year with their quarterback issue, it looks like.
Yeah.
But Tennessee right there on the top 10 too. I was so close to kicking them off. It was between them and somebody like a Penn State Smooch that I was kind of borderline, and I just don't believe in Penn State. I don't believe in James Franklin.
And whatever it is that Heupel's done, he's done it for multiple years. You can say that Tennessee may have hype and underachieve, but they're underachieving at a higher level than they ever achieved in recent years before Heupel got there. And so, this is the year we find out how good Heupel is, and we find out how dedicated Tennessee is to Heupel, because if they make him feel like he's not wanted or valued, he'll just leave. So this season is pivotal for them. So they are, depending on Josh Heupel, they are either going to start climbing back up this list or falling off of it. They are right there. Speaking of the bubble.
The bubble, we did have some bubble teams that we kind of thought about including them in the top 10, but they
There's
just got
Penn
pushed
State right there. Yeah.
to the side. Yes, number 11, Penn State, Nittany Lions. I don't think we have to talk about them very much because you folks know how we feel about them. They are just good enough to be in the conversation, but they don't beat anybody of consequence. Usually they're going to lose those games that are questionable and win the games they should win. But
they're very good at losing respectably.
Yep. And Florida should feel really good. I got them at 12. We had them at 12 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing some things. They finally got a quarterback, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean,
as long as they can keep him.
It looks like he's a quarterback. I think he's one of those quarterbacks right now that is built more on he's got talent, and we saw some glimpses of that, but it's more hype than anything at this point.
Yeah.
After this season, that I probably won't have to say that. It'll be one way or the other. But now just the little bit of the unknown, that's with Lagway, because he was injured a lot last year. Just that unknown gives you the perception that, hey, his ceiling is still way up here. He could do anything. But, we felt that way about Nico a couple years ago as well.
Well, they were talking that way about Trent a few years ago. At Florida, Trent Richardson. Anthony Richardson. They're talking that way, the same way about him just a few years ago. I believe, according to Eric at Bulldog Report, Florida averaged 27 points per game in which Lagway attempted 10 or more throws. 10 or
that's
more
not great.
throws, they're
That's not
averaging
great.
27 points a game. That's not elite, folks. We agree with the potential, but it hasn't been seen or recognized.
Yeah, once it gets a larger sample size, then we'll know which way to go on him. He looks good, but you still got to do it. You got to do it. And the fact that he hasn't had a large sample size enables a lot of these pundits and Florida fans to push him a little farther maybe than he should be in terms of what the hype is. Anyway, looking at the 13 and 14 and 15, these are two SEC teams with Ole Miss, with Lane Kiffin, and Oklahoma Sooners. Always a team that could put it together. And then we finish out with the Miami Hurricanes at number 15. And so,
yeah, I would say the Hurricanes to me are they're one of those. I believe you said this earlier. They're just not going to play anyone this year, and you might not find out how overrated the Hurricanes are until the college football playoff. That may actually occur, and then they get in there and get the ever loving dog beaten out of them. No pun intended, Carson Beck. but yeah, but they have put together some splash moves in the transfer portal and in recruiting, but in the transfer portal right now, you up your gold standard level now with the portal. You can do that, and Miami has been very aggressive there. Ole Miss, they seem to be a one-trick pony that beat Georgia last year, but they're good enough for those splash wins each year, just not sustained excellence. Oklahoma is the little engine that could. You just keep thinking, okay, if this, and this, you've got a really good team here. And can they get their head above water long enough to be a standard in college football?
Miami does open their season with hosting Notre Dame. So that's going to be a tough one, especially with Carson Beck. We know that Carson Beck's got talent, got a lot of arm talent. Maybe he's kind of locked in this year with maybe fewer distractions. I don't know. But he's still the first year.
He's short one girlfriend this year, so maybe that helps.
But he is the first year in a new program. And that always plays a part. These players that transfer, it's usually the second year that they have the opportunity to really do what hit close to their potential. That first year is not, some players, I think Cam Ward's first year last year at Miami. So, but that was, to me, a lot of even it propelled him to the number one pick.
Well, think about what
did they win of significance? Tell me.
Right. Nothing. But think about what you're asking. You're asking to catch Cam Ward lightning in a bottle 2 years in a row. Those things like what Cam Ward did last year, that happens in a generation. That is so rare. You get a transfer guy with potential, he puts it together, number one pick in the draft. And I got news for you, too. Cam Ward is about 10 times the natural leader that Carson Beck is, and that has nothing to do with arm talent. So you can stop ringing the generational lightning in a bottle bell right now.
Yeah, and two of their first 4 games are games that are very losable. It gets easier after that because they got they do have both of those games at home where they host Notre Dame in game 1, and in game 4 they host the Florida Gators. Okay. So we'll see which team that's going to be a great game.
That's going to be really fun. We'll watch that.
That's on September 20th. That's a prove it kind of game. Who's for real?
We watch every game. That was a joke, by the way. There's not a game that goes on we don't watch.
Yeah, then they don't play a whole lot. I mean, we talked about Miami more than we should. Florida State, Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State. I mean, these are games that they lost a few of these games last year, though.
By the way, on that note, I'm going to call Miami upset by Syracuse right now.
You like their coaching staff, do you?
I love the coaching staff, and I think right about that time they should have a wheel that Beck has knocked off by then and have some problems in the locker room. Syracuse to upset Miami this year. Book it.
Yeah, they're going to need a really strong – I think their offensive line's improved even without Cantwell. But they're going to need some real strong leadership, I think, once games start to matter in some of these tougher games. Because Beck, like I said, great arm talent. He's just not that dude, and that's okay. So you need a couple players on that team that's going to take everybody and say, hey, this is the way it's got to be done. This is where we're going to do it. And this is, especially in the heat of the moment, you need those leaders. So we'll see if they have that. I'm doubtful, but that's why they're on the bubble and they're on the bubble of being off the bubble at 15.
On the bubble of being off the bubble. Yes, good.
So that's what we have there for you folks with our our first list. It won't be the last list we have in this offseason. But recruiting wise, Georgia is having some this first few weeks of June are always huge.
Yeah.
And they had the scavenger hunt a couple weeks ago, and that was a big turnout, and players really enjoyed that, getting a chance to see the Georgia campus with their families and get to see a lighter side of Coach Smart. Georgia has moved on, I guess, because they're still trying to fill some holes with this 2026 cycle on the offensive line. And so one of the big recruits they're looking at is Malachi Lee. Yes. He's a 4-star tackle from Hawaii. And Stacey Searles has been
Honolulu.
out in Hawaii. He's been out there twice.
Do you know what other famous Bulldog was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, Troup Brinson? Amy Moncrief, the wife of Smooch Moncrief, also born in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Very nice. I was thinking of players. I was like, oh, who is?
Oh, that? she's a player. She's a player.
Yep. So Searles has been out there. God bless him. I mean, it's a lot of hours in a plane. I will say that. And for us, if we travel a lot,
yeah,
I don't care where you're going. Being on a plane 8, 10, 12 hours is no fun. And so he's been there twice to see Lee. And Lee's got some measurables, right?
He's got some measurables. You know, he's 6'7". Now, junior year, they had him at 306. I have heard he is all the way up to 330 now. I believe 247 has him at 318. So we're talking about a big man. Some obvious Polynesian descent. So, you know, those guys carry really big elbow joints, knee joints. They're wide in the hips and carry a lot of weight very gracefully. And, you know, the measurables are there, the feet are there, and what you hear about him is that phone booth strength, that inside of a 4x4 box, he's quick, agile, and the strongest guy on the field. It just has to do, Troup Brinson, with, you know, like I believe one scouting website has him going. Oh gosh. Anyway, I know 247 has him going to Michigan, 100% crystal ball. We know from how many 100% crystal balls Georgia's got that don't mean anything. But what we're understanding is Georgia is quickly climbing in that race.
USC thinks they got him too, right?
That's it. USC was the other. Yeah. USC, he is crystal ball to both USC and Michigan. And USC is already counting him. I mean, they've already got a depth chart out with him in it. And so, but
Right. Yeah. And Georgia, otherwise, looking at some other guys, of course, and they've only got 9 commitments. They probably will take 15 to 16 more in this cycle. So a lot of names and a lot of people going to be jumping on board. And we always look at like Mark Bowman, the big time tight end that everybody says is so special. Georgia's putting a lot of eggs in his basket.
So I watched this past weekend. I watched probably an hour and a half of game footage of his. Some I had to watch longer portions of the game than I wanted to. He's a special talent. I wanted to see, quote, what the hype was. I found out. Yeah. He doesn't move like Brock Bowers. He moves like Jimmy Graham. If you remember that cat that played for New Orleans, Hall of Fame tight end, that's who he moves like. That his coordination is similar to that. Just ridiculous talent level and body control.
Another tight end Georgia heavily involved with is Jordan Prothro, another high level tight end. Georgia is going to get what they want in terms of tight ends. They've been doing it for several years now. They
right.
are the tight end U, as well as linebacker U. Ooh. And several guys are looking. Of course, everybody talks about Tyler Atkinson, and I even heard Jake Rowe say that he's heavily involved with Georgia. He's from the state of Georgia. And the only way Georgia doesn't sign Atkinson is if the money is just crazy. He goes somewhere else because of money. Because they've circled him and really Bowman too. Those are guys that Georgia really, really wants. And so they're going to have somebody's going to have to just come way into the paycheck, I guess, into the back of the truck up and dump a load of cash in his front yard.
Tyler is
Atkinson away from Georgia.
Yeah. Well, and it could happen because when you talk about, I mean, it really could, because you're talking about this is a kid. Somebody's going to, if it's going to be money, somebody will overpay for him. Let's say it like that, because it comes down to his character. If he is just the guy that wants to go to Georgia because that's the best, if he can make that decision in his mind, I can't imagine being that age and having to make a decision when people are throwing millions of dollars at me. This is according to 247 Composite, this is the 9th best player period in the country. Number 1 linebacker, number 1 player in the state of Georgia. He is top 20 on every single recruiting service nationally. He is an undisputed 5-star. This is a type of talent that is, what is it? On3 has 5-star plus. You know, they have that little thing, which I hate. But this is an elite member of the 5-star club in Tyler Atkinson. And so I really think he's coming to Georgia, but I also really know somebody's going to get desperate and crazy at the 11th hour.
And Georgia will pay for him. There's no doubt. They don't even have to. Georgia is so deep at linebackers, and they always clean up at linebacker, just like tight end. It kind of feels like, well, should they, go over budget? And they won't, but should they spend so much of a large portion of their budget for a position group that they're already super, super deep in? But he's that kind of player. You don't do it for everybody, but he's that type of player. Georgia's also in the mix for another Nick Abrams, a very high-level, high 4-star out of Georgia, state of Georgia. And Isaiah Williams, another guy they're looking at. Then, of course, Xavier Griffin, he followed the yearly migration away from USC after, they commit, they migrate back to Georgia. He may end up at Alabama, I think, but Georgia's still in the mix for him. And
I'm here in Alabama, yeah.
And actually, Jalen Walker came for one of the, the groupings that came to visit Georgia last weekend, I think it was. And what's his name? Tootle, Auburn commit, Shadarius Tootle, another high level linebacker, 4-star, and they're already putting in crystal balls or whatever you want to call it, trending towards Georgia. After that, he's a player Georgia would love to have on campus. He got a lot of measurables, and so he snatched him away from Auburn possibly. And Jalen Walker was huge. He asked the coaching staff, if anything I can do, I'll come and help recruit some of these players and let them know what being a Georgia Bulldogs all about. Got to love that. That people call that culture. I think so.
That's what they call it, Troup Brinson.
But yeah, and we always say that, and this is the thing we did on the last show talking about USC, who was celebrating their number 1 recruiting class right now. Their average is 90 or right below 90. And so that tells you that Georgia typically will be right in 93. 94 is great. If you can average 93, 94, man, you have a sensational recruiting class.
That's right.
And there's so much meat on the bone for Georgia, who has 9 commits. And we saw that USC had something like 27. How many can you sign? Unless they keep decommitting,
Yeah.
But Georgia signs these high-level players as the season goes. They don't all commit early. And so you kind of got to temper your excitement, especially in this NIL era, because even the players that you invest in all their whole high school career could be swayed by dollars, and agents play such a big role in this too. Now they can get in their ear and tell them what they need to do. But anyhow, that's where we sit right now. Georgia's got some big, I think we'll have some news in the next month or so with some more commitments coming Georgia's way.
We just got we got a commitment for 2025 as well, right? Didn't we just pick up?
We had a player slide in, and these guys are on campus right now. Some of the guys that didn't join in this, didn't come early arrivals are coming on the campus right now. And Georgia had a name you might remember, London Seymour.
There it is.
Tackle.
Legacy.
North Gwinnett. And we thought he was going to where? Boston College maybe? Or
Boston
somewhere like
College,
that. And but Georgia offered him, and he's coming on to play for Georgia as a defensive tackle. I mean, last commit of the 2025 class, I guess that would be.
Yeah, I will take pedigree. We were talking about this. I will take pedigree any day of the week. I'm a big believer in genetics and family giftings and all of that. You guys all remember Richard. If you don't, you're not a dog. But you guys all remember.
Some of these young guys, mate, they only know the name. But yeah, you're right.
I know. But
some of the Jim Donnan days back at the turn of the century. So Seymour. It was Marcus Stroud and Seymour. They were
and
part
Sullivan.
Of that duo, right?
Yeah. If you remember, let's see, Seymour came to Georgia had those years, then went, I believe, directly to the Patriots, who then began winning Super Bowls. So, I mean, he had a really nice transition to the pro ranks, and absolutely, Ed. You know, he's not as big as his dad, but he is 300 pounds, and we're gonna find out. But that's a 3-star. When Georgia is offering 3 stars, you pay attention to 3 stars and you throw the stars out the window, especially when their dads were DGDs. So, you know, who knows? Who knows what's there? But we just picked up that commitment. We celebrate them all because you win national championships with those Jordan Davises, those types of players that come in and get it done and make something of themselves.
Yep. And wrapping that part up, we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, some of the oddities we've seen on social media this week. Maybe
that is a lovely way of putting it.
Pundits putting stuff out there to get some attention. It feels like, and one of these guys this past week he's never been a Georgia supporter, and I always thought he was a Georgia Tech guy for some reason. He graduated from Vandy, I think, but Dan Wolken is just trying to stir the pot the last few days and just put the needle in Georgia a little bit, talking about that Notre Dame game and saying something that compared Georgia to Indiana, and that Indiana played Notre Dame just about as well as Georgia did. He did say, put it up there.
All right, so Georgia lost to Notre Dame, Indiana lost to Notre Dame, and they lost in what he deems as similar fashion. So that gives you a read on the two teams. That's what he's maintaining?
I guess so. And he got called out by a lot of people, obviously. And some fans, Georgia fans, took it the wrong route. They were like, well, Georgia fumbled and then had a kickoff return for a touchdown. We're like, no, you don't go that route, because that's not what he's saying. He's not saying that Georgia lost because of this. The statistic would say that Georgia was right there with Notre Dame, but then you had, if you talk about offensive stats, Notre Dame did absolutely nothing against Georgia.
That's true.
But Indiana didn't do anything either. And the thing is that if you're going to put that out there and say, his exact quote, and I know he just put it up there, was, before it inevitably gets memory hold or forgotten, Indiana gave Notre Dame just as good as a game as Georgia did. So he's really saying that Indiana is on par with Georgia.
Right. That's
the ridiculous part that we know is so far-fetched.
That's the inference, because all you do is very simple. You simply take the line of thinking that that Dan Wolken has now set up, and you take it to its conclusion. Its conclusion, then, if we're going to apply Dan Wolken thinking to this, okay, so then we can then say unequivocally that Georgia Tech is a better team than the University of Texas.
Yes, obviously.
Because Texas got smoked by Georgia once, lost in overtime a second time. Meanwhile, Tech took them to multiple overtimes. So Tech is on a par with Texas. Thank you, Dan Wolken, for proclaiming Tech as now the media darlings for the upcoming 2025 season.
Yeah.
Possible national champions.
It did its job. It got Georgia fans rebutting his ridiculous comment. But on his face, it was accurate. You know, those games were the end result, the score at the very end was similar.
Well,
you can come up with all the reasons why, when Georgia was playing with a backup quarterback, or quarterback starting his first game, or they had some of the kind of things happen in that game that don't normally happen.
Oh, don't use logic and football knowledge, Troup. Come on.
But then when you start doing that, then it makes you look weak. And so we just say, that Notre Dame beat Georgia and they beat Indiana. I would love to play Indiana. We were all hoping that Georgia and Indiana, very similar to what Georgia was hoping a few years ago, that USC somehow made it into the playoffs, that they could play them.
Ooh, that would have been nice.
Yeah, not on the same level whatsoever.
Well, let's look at this. Let's look at where Indiana was last year, the year before that, the year before. Then I'm saying, look at their history. Look at Georgia's history. Right, where were they? Now look at Georgia's history, and where were they? Where were they going? Georgia's winning national championships. The only back-to-back national championship school in the history of the college football playoff.
Yes,
there's only been one win back-to-back. Now, through this whole time, Troup Brinson, what has Dan Wolken been doing? Let's look at his track record. Let's look at the things. Let's look at the things that he has said over the years. I would like to take you back to Dan Wolken bestowing upon us his great and penetrating knowledge of college football upon the hiring, let's jump back a few years, of Kirby Smart. Georgia hires Kirby Smart, much to the chagrin of this great football poobah known as Dan Wolken. And here is his quote, and I read, "You're Georgia. You're a top 10, maybe top 5 team in the country. And you're going to run this coaching search like a freaking Letterman's Club and just immediately go to Kirby Smart without throwing it out there for some of the biggest names in the country? You're now the best job available. And I think that, listen to this, people, that would be gross mismanagement and a small-time mentality by Georgia to fire Mark Richt and go immediately to Kirby Smart, whose greatest qualification for the job is that he's a Georgia guy. Give me a break," end quote.
Yeah.
There we are.
I should have ended his career right then. And
That
effectively,
It pretty much did.
in terms of Georgia's credibility and for Georgia fans. Yeah.
Right. You're
Wolken
literally
did.
talking about the only coach in all of college football that could write his check to go to any other team in the country. And we have this same prognosticator of football bemoaning the fact that Georgia hired him. I would have loved to hear him name those other names he wanted Georgia to look at other than Kirby Smart. But I guarantee you it would have been something utterly ridiculous. I guarantee you Dan Mullen was on his list.
That was the name.
I guarantee.
As soon as you paused, I was going to say Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen. You know it was on there. No, it was on there. My gosh. How do these people get paid for this, Troup?
Yes. Yeah. So we had some fun with them on, and I especially did on social media, a little bit on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. And he took a lot of heat for that because he says stuff like that. He's I'll go ahead and say it. He's kind of a soft take kind of a guy. He says stuff that you feel like the dots in terms of his brain in college football don't always connect. But he tries really hard, maybe too hard sometimes to do that. There was a couple of teams I had mentioned, Smooch, just to talk about briefly as we wrap the show up. When one of them was Texas, another one was USC. With Texas, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how Texas is getting so much hype. I think they're a top 10, top 7 program for sure.
They're a top 7 program. I think that's perfect.
But they are hinging so much. They lost a lot last year, but they're hinging so much on Arch Manning.
Yes.
And he hasn't done it yet, and he didn't do it last year.
That's it.
To any degree either.
That's it, Troup Brinson. Like, okay, you can say he's going to take the next step, but why couldn't he unseat a 7th round NFL draft pick last year, Troup? He couldn't unseat a 7th round draft pick, and that gives you confidence for this year? That doesn't add up to me, Troup Brinson.
He could be a serviceable quarterback and do some good things. I just don't think I think without the name, if his name was anything other than Manning, then there would be a lot of skepticism, and he would be in the same kind of boat that like Georgia and Alabama are breaking in really new quarterbacks this year, and they're going to need the team around them to play substantially better than they did last year. And so I know that's where they are. I've seen them predicted to win it all. And, and I just think that remains to be seen. I think Texas is.
They haven't won the SEC yet. How in the world? Yeah.
I'm skeptical about that. I think they're a good team, but they got to come to Athens this year, and Georgia's beaten them everywhere but Athens so far. So I got a good feeling about that as well. Georgia's got better talent overall than Texas. I know that hurts you Texas fans to hear it, but it's just the truth.
It's the truth.
Georgia is more talented. They've been doing this for longer. They've been stacking top 3 recruiting classes on top of each other.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed. Hasn't changed for Bama either. And so you folks shoveling dirt on Bama, it's just because you don't believe in DeBoer. It's not because they're not talent rich for sure.
Yeah.
But so we're going to, that remains to be seen. I'm not afraid of Texas whatsoever.
No.
And then the USC, we were talking about them. They're a team that still has these delusions of where they are on the current football landscape. They can make a jump, a step up. They could leap. Even Lincoln Riley, he rarely hear coaches do what he did this past week
Lincoln Riley may just not be as good as we thought he was.
Yeah, on some interview, he was just talking about how they are taking another step defensively. They already improved last year, and their coaching staff and their talent. It may be better. They haven't done it yet. They still gave up 24 points a game last year. That's not quality defense. I don't care. I mean, it's better than giving up 30 points a game, but it's still not quality defense.
That's right.
And you can't lose 5 games a year, and it just doesn't happen that way. I don't know if their offense is going to be substantially better either with Maeva, but the thing about USC is they still think they're right in the mix for that, like a top 5 team.
Yeah.
Smooch, let me let you guys know how long it's been since USC was a factor.
Tell us about it.
And so between the years of 2002 and 2008, yes, they had it going. That's a long time ago. 17 years ago, 2008.
Yeah.
They only lost 9 games over those years. 2002, 2008, won 2 national championships. Were close to winning another. But that's a long time ago. And since then, they've just maybe won some conferences. But again, they're on the West Coast. They're not they're not playing in the West Coast Conference anymore. And they're going to have to really make some big changes. They can't just live off of a past reputation who was almost a generation ago.
Yes, that's so true. Troop, it reminds me so I was I grew up playing in a secular rock band, traveled the southeastern part of the country, and we used to always talk about that as we grew old and got into careers and started that, and we're no longer on the road playing with these bands. We'd watch people that were friends of ours go off and become famous and have big careers and all that. And that was great and fine. But there was always that one guy that, though he's 50 years old, he can't get over the fact that his band one day, years ago, opened for Nirvana. He just can't get past it, and he still lives there. He still wears the torn jeans. He still wears the flannel. He still does all the stuff. He's balding on top, but he keeps the long hair because he can't get over that night where his band got to do, where he was on stage with one of the greats, and he just can't stop thinking about it and living at the prom that was 25 years ago type of thing. And that is where USC fans are. They are 2 decades past the prom, and they're still talking about winning the homecoming crown. I mean, it is the sadness and the desperation is one of the most delicious things I've ever had from California. I'll be honest.
Yeah. And we know all that. And we're old enough football fans to have seen these cycles go this route. And then the fans who have such a hard time of letting that go. That's why we think that possibly Alabama could be there. Yes. Alabama, if this is a pivotal year for their program too.
100%.
If they lose 3 or 4 games this year, there might not be any. I mean, even though they got talent, that talent will start to decline. They won't be able to pull the same recruits because the aura of Alabama with Saban will be gone. They just like USC needed to do years ago, or in Tennessee, teams do it every few years. You see teams that you'd never think they'll fall off a cliff, and there you go. Right. There are cycles that they just can't recover from, coaching hires that don't pan out, and things take a turn. And there's nobody going to feel sorry for you, and not at all. They're going to kick you while you're down for sure. So USC's there. I think if they had a coaching staff or a coach who we as fans had really believed in. I mean, I think Riley there's good things about him. There's things about Lincoln Riley. He's not a horrible coach, but you don't lose 5 or 6 games a year playing some of the competition he does.
Playing Utah.
Not get hit over the head with that. I mean, we're going to hit you over the head with that record because it shouldn't be that. If Georgia was losing those games, people would be questioning. Kirby Smart wouldn't be at the top of his profession. He would be the number 1 coach in college football. And
he darn sure wouldn't be able to just say, hey, we're going to be much better this year. And all the fans would be like, oh, Kirby said it. But no, they'd be like, wait, show us on the field when you're going to be better. You can't just say you're going to be better like Lincoln Riley seems to do every single season.
And they should be better. They should be. They've focused on it. But if they're not, then Riley is his time at USC is very short. He's on the hot seat as far as I'm considered. As far as I really don't think that with all that's the tough thing, that if you go out there and really promote what you think the expectations are and raise the expectations. When you don't come close to meeting them, fans are going to say, no, we need somebody else in here, and the administration is going to lose confidence in you as well.
100%.
That's why you got all these coaches, these historical coaches. They poor mouth their team. They're not out there telling everybody how great they are. That's when is that ever? When the great coaches ever have to do that? Never. You never see that.
Look at Kirby and Feinbaum today in Destin. It's a masterclass. A masterclass.
Yeah. And we like that. Well, I hope USC's got a good team this year, and they should have a good team. But
I want them to be good. Football's more fun when USC is good, but that hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah, we know that football is all about the Southeast down here. That's where they play real football. Those teams will cycle in and out every once in a while, but college football bread is buttered here in the SEC.
It's where the big boys play.
Yeah. So that's all I got tonight, Smooch. Just be on the lookout for some recruiting news in the next couple of weeks. We'll come back at you and report
some big stuff coming, people.
Yeah. And I'm sure on social media, we may next week may be another one of those delusional fan alerts, because I got a feeling that some of this stuff from this show is going to generate some takes.
I hope so.
But bring it on. We can't wait. It is off season. It's list season, so enjoy that list. We may have another one out next week as well. But that's all I got. Smooch for Smooch Moncrief. And this is Troup Brinson here saying so long. We see you soon.
This is the Dog Show with Troup and Smooch.
It's the dog show.